Hi there guys, and welcome to another edition of the Cover Zero show with me, your host Simon Conboy, just continuing to mow my way through these free agency recaps for the first wave, continuing on with the AFC North, and this episode will be focusing on the Cincinnati Bengals. Disappointing season all round for Cincinnati. They may have underestimated the impact of some of the talent that they lost last off-season in free agency. AJ Green got hurt. That really hampered the offense. Tyler Eifert again struggling with injury. Those are the two weapons in the receiving core. Without them, they didn't have too much for Andy Dalton to work with. The offensive line, which has been a big strength for them over the last few years. A couple of the recent draft picks that they would have been hoping could step in and play have struggled. There's been a couple of losses there as well, as we discussed, so that could well be an issue in future. Defensively, weren't again underperformed compared to what they had in previous years. The front four wasn't a stout, struggled to get some pressure, starting to look a bit slower. It's a veteran group. I think generally across the board, there's been a decline in talent over the last couple of seasons. We saw that take effect last year. And they ended up looking like a very average team at times. Andy Dalton, as we know, is not going to light the world on fire. And once AJ Green got injured, we really saw that offense struggle. So going into this off-season, the key needs I had for the Bengals were defensive end. Carlos Dunlap's a solid player and needs some help from him. Michael Johnson doesn't offer too much at this point in his career. They could do with another impact pass rusher from the outside, take some pressure off of him and Geno Atkins. Wide receiver, we saw they really missed Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones last year. Whilst neither one of them, is a world beater, they're both solid receivers. When you pet, them and AJ Green were a really, really good triple threat with Tyler Eifert. We saw last year, Tyler Boyd, some of those other guys that they've got on the roster were not able to step in and contribute as they may have hoped. Linebacker, I just feel like they're a team that looks very slow at linebacker. Burfict's a solid player, a bit of a risk, of course, because he's still got that propensity to lose his head in a game, but Ray Maluga, some of the other guys, they could do with a bit more coverage ability and speed behind that front four. I think that would really assist this team. So I think this is a team that has been once again very heavily affected by free agency. I think they've certainly come out of these first couple of days worse off. First off, losing Andrew Whitworth. I'm going to cover losses because it just feels more significant than the additions that they've made. Been a mainstay, Pro Bowl player for a number of years for them on the blind side. His leadership will be missed. His overall level of play will be missed. Highly unlikely they'll be replaced in 1 year. Cedric Ogbuehi, I'm not perfect on the enunciation there, I'm sure. He struggled since he was drafted. Fisher, he's not shown much either, so that's a tough loss. I was expecting him to come back. Players at that kind of age, you often expect them to stay with the franchise. In this case, that did not happen. Mainstay on the defensive line, DeMarco Pico, he's gone. Struggled last couple of years. I think age has caught up to him a bit. I don't think it's a big loss, but again, it's some veteran experience that's lost from the team. Carlos Dansby, he's gone back to Arizona again. This is what I mean by that's reasonable to me. As I say, I feel they need to get more athletic and faster in the linebacking group. Losing Kevin Zeitler is, I think, very, very much debilitating. I believe I said this previously, and I had this in a free agency preview article I did. The Bengals really do show confidence in their ability to draft and develop offensive linemen. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that they're going to have the ability to replace him at this point. He was one of the top guards in football over the last couple of years, a player in his prime. It's no shock that he was signed to the kind of deal he was, but I just feel like this is the kind of move that is going to hurt the team, especially when you combine it with Whitworth. Like, they've lost the effective side on an offensive line that struggled last year. The left side was a strength, and now both of those players are gone. That does not bode well to me for this team. They'll be hoping those guys can step in. Whether that can replicate that level of play, I don't know. I highly doubt it. They lost defensive end Margus Hunt. That's not a huge concern. And Rex Burkhead, the running back, they're okay at running back, so that also not a huge deal. In terms of the additions, Andre Smith is back from the blue. So the Behemoth right tackle, who knows, they may even ask him to play on the left. He's back with the team. No, I don't think anybody saw that one coming. If he can turn the clock back a few years, turn up in good football shape, have his head screwed on correctly. There have been weight issues and general, I think, effort issues with him in the past. But if he wants to be, he could be a good player for them. They re-signed Brandon LaFell at wide receiver to a 2-year, $10 million deal. I think we've seen at this point in his career that's not an exciting move. Brandon LaFell is, he's a guy who can contribute. He's got some experience to him. Not a particularly reliable or talented option. It's not a huge contract, so it's hard to be too critical. It's just depth. But certainly not going to alleviate any of the concerns I think the Bengals fans and myself have about that receiving group as a whole. Bringing back cornerback Dre Kirkpatrick on a 5-year, $52 million deal. I can understand why they've done this. I think it's an overpay. I think something in the sort of $40 million range a year, over the course of the contract, would have been a bit more reasonable. I think played solidly last season, generally underachieved considering his draft position. But, it would have been a big hole to fill had they lost him. So maybe could have let him go, found a cheaper replacement. But, keeping guys in the building always can be a good thing, and you never know, maybe he'll kick on from last season, continue to improve and really help that defensive backfield. Can't be too critical of it, although, as I say, would have been a lot nicer to see that deal trimmed down for them a little bit. Kicker Josh Bullock's been brought in, and Eric Winston, who, again, much like Andre Smith, best years probably behind him. Tackle, he's re-signed. Whether he can still play at a high level, I'm not sure. Gives him a vet. It's another option. We'll see what happens there in terms of players still available from them. Wallace Gilbury, Cedric Pearman, and Corey Brown. No big names there. I think this team is worse than it was at this point last week. That offensive line would really concern me. I don't think at this point they look like they're going to be a disaster going into next season, but I just don't think I can see them. They've been sort of up until last season contending, making the playoffs and struggling to advance in them. But it was one of the deeper, more talented rosters. I think age is starting to show up at certain spots, and the general loss of talent over this past couple of off seasons has caught up to the team. Can see them being a very middle of the road kind of team next season. Hopefully AJ Green comes back healthy. He's been one of my favourite players to watch ever since he was drafted there, but I don't feel he can carry the offense on his own. And Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard just do not seem like they're both solid players. But I think last year we saw you need to have an offensive line to help them out. They're not going to, be gashing teams without some assistance. So, apologies, Bengals fans. It's probably a bit more negative than some people would have expected, but that's just my feelings on it. I had very high expectations for the team going into last season. I saw worrying signs of decline from them in a lot of positions, and none of these moves make me feel any better about the direction that this team is heading in. If they have a good draft, who knows, they could be back contending, but I really feel like, you know, there's a lot of needs on this roster right now, and I feel like those offensive line problems and those losses are really going to haunt this team going forward. But, you know, as always, let me know what you think. Do you think that losing Zietler and Whitworth has severely damaged this Bengals offense? Do you think the younger players will be able to step in, play adequately, and keep the team humming along? Where do you think this team is going to go in the draft? And where do you think they need to attack? Let me know. I'll do my best to respond to all comments made. Let me know if you've got any ideas for future shows. I'll do my best to get those done. You know, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Patreon. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for your time. Check out some of the other shows, and go Bucks.